Let me ask you a question. Do you really know what's supposed to go in a living will? Do you really know? I'm attorney Vernita Williams. I'm in practice here in South Florida, and I've been getting a lot of questions due to this coronavirus scare. And a lot of people are thinking about serious life and death matters because this thing is impacting so many of us. So I've been called to action by some of my clients who are saying, we need information, we need to get things done. So I want to recommend to you, before I start talking about the living will, let me recommend to you 8 specific things that I recommend that you do during this time. And it's not just because of the crisis that we're in, but these are things that you should do anyway. But if you haven't done them, there is no better time than now to get this done. The first is the living will. The second is the medical power of attorney. The third is the durable power of attorney. The fourth is the last will and testament. The fifth, a revocable trust, if you determine that is good for you. The sixth, a joint tenancy deed, if you determine that's the way you should do it. The seventh is a Totten trust, which is the pay on death card that you put on file with the bank where you do your banking. And the eighth is insurance considerations. In this brief video, I just want to talk about the living will. When you think about a living will, some people think a living will is the same thing as a last will and testament. It is not. A living will says whether you want to be on life support, and a last will and testament states who you want to distribute your assets to if you were to pass away. So I just want to narrow down to just the living will in this video. Now, there are 7 things that I recommend that people consider when they are doing a living will, which states whether they want to be on life support. A lot of times when people think about life support, they just think it's about whether you want to be on a breathing machine. But there are 7 different things I want you to think about concerning the living will. The first thing is, do you want to be on a breathing machine? If you cannot breathe on your own, is it your preference that you remain on a breathing machine? And if so, for what period of time? The second thing is, do you want CPR? You know the process where somebody do chest compressions to get your heart beating again. If your heart were to stop beating, do you want to have CPR done on you? Or do you want a do not resuscitate order? So that's a different thing from whether or not you want to be on a breathing machine. The third thing is, do you want to be on a feeding tube? All of these things are living will considerations. You know, there are some people who may be breathing, heart might be beating, but they can't eat on their own, so they have to have a feeding tube. So do you want to have a feeding tube if you cannot eat on your own? The fourth thing is, what about blood or blood products? There are some religions who believe they should not receive a blood transfusion. What about you? What are your concerns about that? The fourth thing is, do you want surgery or invasive diagnostic tests? Some people tell me, well, I'm 85, I'm 90, I don't want any surgeries, or I don't want a diagnostic test that's really invasive. So you need to make that decision. The sixth thing is, what about kidney dialysis? Are you a person who says, well, if my kidneys are gone, I don't want to do dialysis? Or do you say, well, I don't mind the fact that I might have to go to dialysis 2 or 3 times a week. I still want dialysis if it will give me longer to live. The seventh thing is, what about antibiotics? Most people will accept a course of antibiotics, but I've run into a few people who say, you know what, I've lived a long life. I don't want any antibiotics anymore. I'm compromised. I'm always getting infected, and I just don't want another course of antibiotics because they're so harsh on my system. So those are the 7 things that you should think about: breathing machine, CPR, feeding tube, blood products, surgery, kidney dialysis, and antibiotics. If you want to talk about this in a strategy session with me where I can explain a little bit more in detail about these considerations that you need to think about when you do a living will, call me or text me. I prefer you text me at 786-831-9483. 786-831-9483. I will be happy to speak with you. Remember, I know it's a challenging time, but remember to stay safe. Stay home if you can. Remember social distancing. Don't gather in crowds of a large number of people. Wear a mask. Wash your hands as often as possible. And remember to choose faith over fear. There's plenty to be afraid about right now. But have faith in God. Do the best you can to look out for your family, your friends, your loved ones, people in your neighborhood. And call me if you want to discuss what you need to do in particular about a living will. Remember, call me or text me. I prefer to be text so that I can have a record of who I need to return a call to. 786-831-9483. This is attorney Vernita Williams. Thank you so much for listening.